Hey Dave.
Hey, how are you?
Good, how are you? Good to see you.
Good to see you. What's going
Yes,
on?
virtually meet. Nice to meet
Yes.
you.
What's your official capacity with CASA?
So I run website social media content.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Wonderful,
So
wonderful.
I post everything on the website, keep up with all the kids on social. Yeah, it's super fun.
Excellent. Excellent.
Okay, so we have about 15 questions, and I broke them down into questions about Apprentice, questions about Bat Boy or specifically for you, and then questions about auditions.
Okay, great.
Okay, sweet. So
So
if you
yeah,
just want
just yeah, you
to,
can it's up to you however you want to fire the questions off.
okay,
It's good for me.
you want to just introduce yourself a bit?
Sure. Have we still got
Okay,
people? Seems like we still got people coming in
yeah.
a little bit. Good. Well, I'm Dave Clemmons, and I've been here. Well, I've been here. I've been familiar with CASA for a long time. Geez, I used. Hey, Shake, how you doing? Are you in Miami, Shake? Okay. Hey, Claire Dijon, haven't heard from you in forever. Good to see you. Um, yeah, I'm in South Florida, but have spent a lot of time in Texas. And You always knew about Casa. Wally Jones and I have been friends for years. Um, Worked for Tuts for a while. So to get the call from Wally to come, hey, Cameron Majewski, how you doing? Um, Kaylin, what are you doing? Sorry, I have to shout out these people. I've
Oh,
never
it's
done. You're
okay.
in
I love
Portland
it.
now for you're in Portland for a contract. Okay, all right, just good to see where everybody is. Yeah, and so when Wally called, I was, Bat Boy is near and dear to my heart in that I was one of the original producers and the original casting director in the Broadway production, um, or the off-Broadway production. So, I jumped at the chance and was glad to get to finally come work at Casa. I used to audition there as an actor and never got hired, and so now I'm coming in as a director, and I'm pretty excited.
We're super excited. And obviously James as your music director and Meryl as your choreographer. And have you
Yes,
worked with either of them before?
well, James, I have talked to before, and I've known on and off. But Meryl, I knew from New York, because I'll tell you why her name has always rung with me. Is when her production of 42nd Street opened on Broadway, I had just started casting, and and all of a sudden I was casting all these dance musicals, and I didn't know any dancers, and they did this. Amazing campaign for 42nd Street where, like, on the phone booths and stuff, they would put
Mm-hmm.
up posters, and instead of the stars, they would feature an ensemble member. And it would say,
Oh, cool.
Meryl West in 42nd Street as opposed to, lead. And so I always remember Meryl's face, and she got submitted to me. And from that point, I called her in for every dance musical I ever had. It was like, well, put Meryl West on the list. So I used to watch her audition all the time, and we got to meet each other. And then she came and choreographed at the college audition prep weekend that I teach at. And so we got to talk a bit there for the first time in a while. So I'm very excited to work with her and to have her vision on this as well.
Yeah, I mean, we can't wait to get this started. Let me just post for everyone
Tim
who's on.
Frederick, a fraternity brother of mine, is on this call. Tim Frederick joins the call. Excellent.
I'm just gonna post. Hey, Monica, if you're watching, can you post the tiny URL in the comments to auditions? I'll send it to you. Okay, so we're just gonna jump into it. We'll start with questions about Apprentice Program, and Dave, if you can't answer some of these, I can help jump in with some info here.
Great.
Okay, first person wants to know history of the Apprentice Program.
Okay, you will have to
Want me
help
to
me
go
with that
ahead
because
and
I
on
don't
that?
know yet.
Okay. Okay, so basically, Apprentice Program started in 2010 at CASA, and it started with Les Mis, the school edition. Basically, we just wanted to make a program for young, talented artists in the area who could get professional experience on their resume. So it's for 14 to 19-year-olds. We hold true professional auditions, and we have a 2-week rehearsal process. So truly every part of it is professional, and we are thrilled to still be providing that. Last year we did Bonnie and Clyde, and in 2019 we did Carrie the Musical. So we're super excited about
Yeah, and when
that.
I talked to Wally, he said, as far as production values and orchestra and all that stuff, that they're all in. It's a full-blown production here, so we're very excited about that.
Okay, next question. What type of experience will they gain from participating?
Wow. I'll try to run it as much as of a professional situation as I can, but I'm sure most of those guys are used to that, working at CASA a lot. You're used to working professionally, but I'll try to bring to it, that balance of, as I work as an educator and as a professional, when we're in professional situations, we don't get to stop and have teaching moments a lot. We have to assume those things. And I remember there was somebody who said to me once when I was casting and I was trying to work with somebody to get something, and they turned to me and said, we're not running class here. We're trying to hire actors. Well, yeah, I get that in a professional situation, but in something like this, which is a professional situation, but with students, it is a learning situation. And so, I'll take the time to try to make it to where we understand what we're learning and talk about, how this applies to how you would work in the real professional industry, whether that be in New York or Texas or California or wherever. And then I think you're going to learn a lot about yourself as far as creativity, because this is a show that if you don't have a cast, all the bells and whistles and lights and set, all that stuff in the world can't save you. And we all know there's plenty of shows out there that, the material's not so strong, but boy, does it look pretty, and boy, does it distract us from the lack of material. Well, this is not that show. The material is uber strong, and we don't need a lot to help tell the story, but that requires of the actors, incredible creativity. I hope they're going to learn a sense about wacky comedy, about what that's like to kind of get out there and just make it funny, whatever we have to do to make it funny. And where they can go as far as their character life on stage, because we're going to be asking people, the cool thing about this is the characters, right? And how can we craft these incredible characters, to give them as much dimension as possible in this totally surreal world. I mean, it's going to be surreal. I mean, we're talking about a half bat, half boy. Okay, so we're already starting from a place of crazy, right?
Right.
And it just is going to go from there. So it's about, who's willing to go with it, who's willing to, just make the most of a moment. How do we take, a bare bones environment and make that as entertaining as we possibly can. And then just, and then I hope to work at a pace. I mean, 2 weeks for a show this big is actually not a lot of rehearsal time. I think when we did the original production, it was 6 weeks of rehearsal. So, we're going to have to be expedient. We're going to have to be quick. But I think, you'll learn something about working like that, and you'll learn something about what it is to be in one of these just completely wacky, crazy spooficals, we used to call them,
I love
but
that.
where it's just, like Trailer Park Musical and Toxic Avenger and all those kind of things, but Bat Boy was one of the first. And so I hope they're going to learn something about being in that kind of show where everything is about the actor. Everything is about the story the actor is telling. And so a little bit about that, and a little bit about how it's, what it's like to work professionally and get pushed in that way.
I'm taking notes for you. Okay. Yeah, and I think honestly it looks good on a resume. Would you say that having a Apprentice Program experience would?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, especially if you're somebody, because that's my other side is I'm a college audition coach, and certainly, a place like Casa Manana is known. So that experience, being that you were in the Apprentice Program, and Bat Boy is a cool title, I have to say it. It doesn't get done all the time, but people who know it, and usually love it. So it's a cool title to have on there. Working at CASA's a cool place, and whether people love me or hate me, a lot of people know me, and it can at least be a conversation starter on your resume. Oh yeah, I see you worked with that asshole Dave Clemmons. Even if that's what gets the conversation started, that's fine with me.
Right. Hey, we'll take it.
Absolutely.
Okay. What is most exciting to you about the Apprentice Program?
I think, working with these and I know some of the kids that have been in the Apprentice Program, and it's just working with talented young artists at that level. There's
Okay.
something still about an artist who is this hungry, who has the skill set to get out there and compete, but hasn't really done it yet, And so I love this age of artists because you're hungry and you want to learn and you've got great skills, so you can do a lot. And so I think I'm excited about that, about getting in a room with, some really talented folks and just, turning them on and letting them see what they can do. That's what's exciting to me because I'm really, I'm just going to turn them loose with the material. I mean, obviously I'm going to tell them a little bit of what to do, but this show, as people will quickly find out, is up to the actor to make it exciting. So for a lot of it, I'm going to be like, there's your line, there's where you stand. Now you make it funny. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I think that's exciting to me, to think about watching that level of talent work. That's exciting to me, to get down there and get in the room and say, okay, let's make this the best we can. So, but working with talented young performers, I mean, I directed Tut's version of this program when I was in Houston. I directed American Idiot, and that was just so fulfilling, working with kids that age. And I hate to say kids, you're student artists.
Yes.
Young professionals, but working with people that age, it was so exciting, and I thought just brought such an energy to the show because everybody's hungry, and it's not about money, it's not about the paycheck, it's not about a job, it's about the true love of it. So whenever we get in a room with talented people and a good piece of material and say, how are we going to make this excellent? I just think that's exciting.
I like that line. How are we going to make this excellent?
Yeah.
Okay. Last question about Apprentice specifically. Typically, our Apprentice program shows a darker type of show. I'm just going to say we don't really have a criteria for shows that we pick, but in the past they have been darker. Obviously, Bonnie and Clyde, Carrie, Sweeney Todd, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes.
And Bat Boy is not undark.
Right.
It is. There's some stuff. I mean, there's a song in the show called "Apology to a Cow," and it's, Bat Boy singing a song to the bloody head of a dead cow he's just eaten. Okay,
Right.
It's dark. There's some dark shit in it, and it's very allegorical, right? And I think it's very apropos for the times that we're living in, about fitting in, about, acceptance in society, and what do we accept and what don't we accept, and why is this acceptable and this not. So I think the piece speaks to so many things. And I mean, I'll tell this story a million times, I'm sure, but when I got the gig to cast this, a friend of mine introduced me to the director, Scott Schwartz, who's Stephen Schwartz's son, who directed the original production. And we met and liked each other. Great, I'll send you a script and you'll cast the reading. And I read the script and I was like, wait, this? Really? And because it was coming in from LA, Larry O'Keefe and those people were from LA, and it had won all these awards in LA and been sold out, and everybody was talking about it. And so I was excited. I get to cast this new hot thing. And then I read it. I'm like, wait, this? Seriously? Did somebody send me the wrong script? And I'm like, okay, fine, but we had the most, Caitlin Hopkins and Devin May and all these, Carrie Butler and all these amazing people in it. And I went to the first read through, and they had to stop the reading because I was literally falling out of my chair laughing. I had never heard something so funny in my life. And it was only because now it was in Caitlin Hopkins' hands, right? Now it was in Devin's hands. Now it was in Carrie Butler's hands. And they knew what to do with this material. They knew how to make it excellent, how to make it funny. And I, from that moment on, I thought it was one of the funniest, greatest pieces I'd ever seen. And I still maintain that. It's its own little gem. It's never going to be in your theater history class. You're never going to talk about it as one of the great musicals of all time. But it's a cult thing. And if you know it, usually you love it. And fans of it are rabid about it.
I think that, what would your advice be to someone who wants to audition for the Apprentice program, but they've not really heard of Bat Boy? They're kind of apprehensive just because they don't know the title.
Yeah, and I get that. And in some ways, I almost think that's better,
Okay.
because this is a show. And Wally called me, and he was like, well, what do you want the casting notice to say? I said, it can say anybody can audition for any role.
Mm-hmm.
And that really is true. Any role could be played by man, woman, any ethnicity. It really doesn't matter with this show. The wackier, the better. And I'm sorry, I forgot the original question because I got off on that tangent.
No, that's okay. I mean, what would you tell someone who's not familiar,
Oh,
but they do want to do the
that's it.
Apprentice show?
Yeah, I would just say, come in and show me what you got, right?
Okay.
Whatever you do. And so certainly in the callback, we're going to have a time where I'm going to want to hear you sing your own stuff, but then we're going to have some time we'll do stuff from the show where we'll put a group of people together and do a scene and see how that goes. And it really is going to be about creativity and inventiveness. And I think it's just bring whatever it is you do, even if it's an eclectic, weird talent, or people always tell you, oh, I've got this weird sense of humor. You're probably perfect for Bat Boy, right? If you're a little bit odd, a little bit eclectic, or you do something strange, that probably makes you a really good candidate for Bat Boy casting, because we are looking for interesting, right? The interesting factor needs to be way high. So I would just say, don't try to do anything. Just come in and show us whatever it is you do. And that may or may not fit into the Bat Boy world. And, just like we have the Marvel universe or the whatever, there is a Bat Boy universe, right? And some people fit in it and some people don't. And, if you understand the tone of the comedy, understand how to sing the score, then you'll fit into the Bat Boy universe. And it's a fun place to be, I'll tell you that.
I mean, just from the tidbit that I've read, I'm really excited to see how it plays out.
It's just, I don't even, when somebody says describe Bat Boy, you know what I mean? It was a half bat, half boy found in a cave in a West Virginia town, and they try to tame him. That's as close as I can come to a one, but it's so much more than that,
Right.
But but Larry O'Keefe, who wrote it, I mean, it's a genius score. I mean, it just is genius. And the more you get into it, the more you'll understand how good it is. But he wrote just an amazing score for that piece.
So someone asked in category questions about Bat Boy / for you, is it like Batman?
No, that has nothing to do with, and that was so funny when we were doing the original production. That was the hardest thing, was explaining the title. Bat Boy, like Bat Boy in a baseball game?
Right.
Bat Boy like Batman? No, nothing remotely so. It's based on, I don't even think it exists anymore, but it was a tabloid newspaper like that you find at the grocery store when you check out like the National Enquirer. It was called the Weekly World News. And they invented this story that there was this half bat, half boy mutant child found in a cave. And they put this picture on the front of it, the picture you would know it if you saw it. And it got like hugely popular. And Larry O'Keefe and his buddies were sitting around, and they kept publishing more stories. Bat Boy goes to D.C., Bat Boy goes to California. And it was all these Bat Boy does this because it was popular. And Larry O'Keefe and all his friends literally were sitting around a campfire one night, and they said, wouldn't it be funny if we wrote the Ballad of Bat Boy? And they wrote this first song, and then it was like, wait, that's kind of good. That's kind of funny. And they ended up writing a whole show about it. So it's hard to explain, but yeah, it doesn't have anything to do with that. And what's really interesting is, that newspaper was passed off as the truth, right? They're trying to sell it as the truth. Well, here we go. And if you're going to do a musical about something in the news, you don't have to pay rights for it, right? So here we go, getting ready to produce this musical. All of a sudden, we get a letter from the publishers going, and let's talk about our rights agreement for you to do this. Oh, but since Bat Boy is factual, so they had to admit to us that they made it up.
Right.
And that was interesting in the deal negotiations that they had to say, well, of course it's fiction, but it
kind of became sensational.
Yes, very much so. And it was this cultic thing where people knew it, and so it's hard to explain what it's about. But if you just say it's based on a tabloid story about a half bat, half boy found in a cave, and they try to domesticate him, that's about as good as I can put it in a sentence.
Okay, we'll take that. Okay, I guess we should say how many roles are available in the show?
Well, there's 10, 10 technically. Now, that's part of the interesting thing about this role is men have to play women, women play men. You're playing, 1 minute, the real badass boyfriend, this badass guy who's supposed to be like a 17, punk, has to turn around and play a 70-something-year-old woman at the same time. So, there's 10 characters, 10 cast members, but they're going to play a multitude of characters. It's also the kind of show where if we had more people audition than we had roles, there's certainly ways to break some things up or to add a bit of an ensemble. Or so if we, it's one of those shows where we can pretty much put anybody to work who is interested or, who fits the deal. But there's 10 main characters, four what you would call leads, but they're all on stage a lot. Right. There's the family, Bat Boy, the mother, the father, the daughter, Shelley. So there's those four, but then the other parts are just, they're great. They're the best parts in the show, are these, 6 character parts.
Right. So 10 plus ensemble.
Well, right now we're just going for 10, but if we have enough that we, feel like, hey, we've got 4 or 5 more that are the same, that are the spirit of the show and know how to do it, then we can either break some parts up or add an ensemble or whatever. That's fortunately with this show, it's real flexible that way.
Okay, fabulous. Are we?
Will there be understudy? I'm so sorry. I just saw this question.
No, you go ahead.
If there's time, I'll tell you. These days, it's always smart to assign an understudy. So I will probably assign them and just say, hey, it's going to be on you understudies to be ready in case there's an emergency. But yeah, I'll probably assign them and people can just be on them and be ready in case there's an emergency. But again, trying to keep it like a real professional thing. Any professional show has understudies, so we'll try to assign them.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh. Frank Wildhorn, is that seriously you that just joined?
The fans love you, Dave.
Mr. Wildhorn, but that's Mr. Wildhorn. I don't know if he's really with us or not. If so, because Frank wrote Bonnie and Clyde that you guys did last year. So anyway, I hope he's with us. Hi, Mr. Wildhorn, if you're here.
Okay, are we going to be doing the full original script?
As I understand it, the script has gone since. This is my same problem. Like I directed Les Mis a few years ago, and I would do things I would say, well, I'm doing the original, and people would be like, well, what's that? And I forgot there've been 2 other versions since the original version of Les Mis. And this show, after, I'm basing what I'm doing on what we did originally off Broadway, but there was a London production, there was another reading, there was a rewrite of the script. So when I'm looking at the script and score, it looks basically like what we did. But it may, there may be some edits or things in there, but it looks like it's essentially what we did in the original production.
Got it.
Oh, and there's our link for auditions. That's good.
Yes. And what is your favorite thing about Bat Boy?
Oh, boy. There's a lot. I think it's I think Larry O'Keefe, and this is going to be a compliment, but he wrote a wonderfully wacky score. You know what I mean? And it's hard to get something that's good and funny and still has meat to it and something that singers can sink their teeth into vocally. And I feel like he really wrote a good score. And I just love the vibe of it. It's a little bit of a vibe of, hey, let's go put on a play in my dad's barn and my mom will sew costumes and, we can use this as a prop and this is it's really inventive. And then I just think it's hysterical. I just think there's some absolute hysterical moments in the show. So I love the comedy of it. I love the score. I love the story. And again, I love a show where actors really get a chance to put on their best goods and, it's not just about standing and singing a song. It's about what are you going to do to make this moment work? Because we got this whole big moment we got to fill, and you ain't got a lot of set, or costumes to fill it up. What are you, the actor, going to do to fill it up? That's what I'm about.
And I think that also helps create depth for the actor.
Absolutely, because he can give, the character a deeper life, and that's what we're looking for is as molded, layered, a deep, and even though it's comedic. I compare it a lot to South Park. It is almost kind of like South Park in some ways in that these characters are so eclectic, and so odd. And that's what I'm a huge South Park fan. And that's what I love about them are these just odd individuals that we've got here, and that's interesting. And so those are the things I love. You know, the comedy, the scores, the script. I love it all. I mean, I'm just a huge fan of the piece, obviously.
Okay, you kind of already touched on this, but can you just explain your previous experience with Bat Boy?
Yeah, I was casting it. Mr. Wildhorn was nice enough one day to, when I was working with him on a show, look at me and say, "Hey, you know what? You're going to cast this show when it goes to Broadway." And so that ended up me becoming a casting director. And I would say it was within a couple of years of that happening that I had a friend who knew the director and was talking about this piece and put us together. So I started as the casting director, and we did 3 readings of the show. And then we started trying to produce it, and everybody loved it, but nobody was stepping forward to produce the money or to get there. So the director, Scott Schwartz, and I, and my friend who was the stage manager, we joined together and said, fine, we'll produce it. And so we went out and raised money, and then that got other people to go raise money. We had the producer of Wicked, the general manager of Wicked came on board with us. The producer of Rent came on board with us. And so all of a sudden, by us just standing up and saying, okay, we're going to do this, then all of a sudden everybody else came on board. And we did the original New York production, and we produced it. And, you know, we won every major award we could win. I think the only thing we lost was that, whether I think it's Outer Critics. It's the one that combines Broadway and off-Broadway musicals, and we lost that year to the producers. And I'm like, okay, if we're going to lose, you know, but we won Best Musical on every other award, and it was like the reviews were like our parents wrote them. I mean, it was just, and you know, and it was just, and you're like, well, then why isn't it still running on Broadway? 9/11, and we were doing so well. We had our first profitable week, and then 9/11 happened. And, you know, we were a downtown show. There were just no people downtown. We were selling a lot of tickets day of. And if you don't have people in town to buy tickets. So, but then, you know, I've just been a fan and proponent of it ever since. And so I was the original casting director and producer, and, you know, literally got to watch it being created. And it was just wonderful.
Yeah, so and that's why it's such a treat to have you on board.
Well, I tell you, again, I don't know about like whether that means good or bad things, but I know it means you're going to be able to do something where I'll be able to say, okay, well, this is how this moment got created, right? Or this is like, for those who know it, there's a character in the script called Clem, right? And my best friend, now Caitlin Hopkins, who a lot of these people know because she's the head of the program at Texas State. Caitlin Hopkins is married to Jim Price, right? Jim Price, they both were in Bat Boy, but they didn't know each other. I cast them both in Bat Boy. That's how they met. That's how they got married, right?
Oh, cool.
So, but there's a lot of things that I'll be able to say, oh, this is how this got created. So one day with Jim, they said, Jim, we need to create a new character for you. You need to say these, and these lines. And we were already in tech. And they said, here's these new lines, but you've got to be a new character. And so he says to them, and they're like, great, we need a name for the script. You get to name the character. And he says, I'll name it Clem, which is after me, because that's my nickname. So there's a character in the script named after me. So there's just little things like that I'll be able to say.
That's a cool tidbit.
Here's how Larry O'Keefe did this. Here's how they did. And another thing people don't know, Alex Lacamoire, who is now basically Lin-Manuel Miranda's music guy. I mean, he was responsible for all the arrangements on Hamilton and In the Heights. Alex Lacamoire was our original music director. And he was amazing. And there's just so many unbelievable moments that took place. So I hope to, you know, share stories and say how this got created. And so whether, you know, it's a good or bad artistic thing working with me, I can say that it will at the very least be fun and informative.
Hey, we'll take it. Okay, Candace, I noticed you just asked about, to clarify about rehearsal time. So the first rehearsal tentatively will start July 18th, and you'll be in rehearsals / performances until the 7th. So we don't know the rehearsal schedule quite yet, but you can always ask for more clarification after callbacks.
Yep.
From the production team. Okay. Moving on to questions about auditions specifically. What makes someone a standout candidate to you?
I'll tell you what it's not.
Okay.
It's not about coming in and singing high and loud,
Mm-hmm.
right? Belting to the rafters, squalling super high notes. It's not about that for me ever, but it's certainly not about that in this show. Now, that's not saying that you don't have to be an excellent singer to do this show, because you do. But that's not what impresses me, because I know a lot of people that can sing high and loud. Um, what impresses me is somebody who just does their work and their job, regardless of what that is, and
Mm-hmm.
just does it and doesn't expect praise. Like a dancer who will do the combination perfectly, but do it from the back line. That's who I'm looking at. I'm not looking at the person who rushed and pushed to the front, right? I'm looking at the person in the back line who's nailing it, right? So in a actor singer way, I'm looking for you to just do your thing, right? With no pretext or pretense or any of that stuff. Just come in and do your thing. Show me who you are. And that to me is what honesty, you know what I mean? Honesty,
Mm-hmm.
organic honesty. That's what makes somebody stand out. And then there are people, I directed this weird version of, I didn't direct, I was the casting director for this version of 101 Dalmatians, and Dennis DeYoung from Styx had written the score, and Jerry Zaks, who has directed the Music Man revival right now and the Hello Dolly revival, and he directed Addams Family. And Jerry was directing, and we were trying to get people to play Cruella's henchmen, and we just couldn't. And we were seeing the best people in the city, and Jerry finally, Jerry's very old school, Broadway director, and he turned to me and he goes, "These people aren't funny. I need funny." And I said, "Well, tell me what you mean, Jerry." And he goes, I don't know. I need the kind of guy that when he walks in the room, I just start laughing. That's the kind of funny I need. And he hadn't said a thing, and I just start laughing. I need that guy. I need two of them, right? And then sure enough, 3 minutes later, this guy walks in, and he went, I need that. That's funny.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm looking for that. I'm looking for somebody to just be funny. Um, you know, and being funny is not something you try to do. You either are funny or you are not funny.
Right.
Now a good script can help, some good direction can help, but at the end of the day, you're funny or you're not. So I think for this show, I'm just looking for people to show me who they are organically, honestly. Who are you? What do you do? Can you be wacky, funny, crazy? Are you willing to, within reason, obviously, do what is required of you? And what's your comedic ability? And and this is true for college auditions, for these auditions, for professional auditions. There are some people who just walk in the room and you just go, that guy. I want
Mm-hmm.
him. I want him in the show. I don't know what he's going to do, but I want him in the show. And I hear directors say that all the time, because they will see somebody that is just so the sensibility that you want,
Right.
and you just go, them. I don't know what they're going to do, but I need that and 10 more like them. And so there is that certain, you hear about it all the time, that indefinable quality, and I'm looking for that. I'm looking for somebody to just come in and sparkle, but without trying to, right? This is not about showing off or trying to show me something.
Right.
It's just somebody that's who they are and what they do.
Okay. And kind of wrapping up the last question, and then we'll just talk about the qualifications for
Yeah.
auditioning. What is something that could strengthen my audition? I know we broadly spoke about that earlier.
Oh, something that could strengthen your audition?
Yes.
Um, I'll tell you one thing is, well, I'll give you two. And one is a real practical
Okay.
focus, right? And we see people all the time that come in, and if the table is straight ahead, they're over here or they're over here, or their eyes are kind of darting, or we don't really know where we're looking. Dead center, right? Whoever is the center of the table, right? You want to go at that person's ear level, shoulder level, whoever's center of the table, and focus as if you were looking someone in the eye, right? We know
Okay.
that we've been told to, for the most part, we don't look people behind the table in the eye, right? But if you look at them, but maybe at their ear, at their shoulder, at this part of their head, that feels like to everybody you're focusing on the table. So I think be sure that focus is there, right? That you can just, boom, you look straight ahead and we know exactly who, you are creating the person that you're talking to. You hear teachers sometimes say, just pick a spot on the wall and stare at it. Well, that's partly right. Yes, pick a spot on the wall, but put who you're singing to there. Put what you're singing about there. So that focus can usually just immediately, right, improve somebody's auditioning. And then, I've spent, I started casting back in, 1999, I think. And I've spent years, trying to figure out what is it that makes you like somebody and you don't. And I think it's honesty, just to come in and honestly say what you have to say in a song or a monologue, and just say it from the heart, say it honestly, say it from your perspective, and show me who you are and what you bring to the table, because that's far more interesting than anything you can pretend to be, right?
Right.
So I think on a practical level, focus, right? Where are you looking? Where are you telling the story? And then on a little bit more ethereal level, just being organic and open and honest and letting me see who the person is. And that's going to tell me a lot about who the performer is.
Right. And I mean, would you say that this particular audition would be less polished than?
Yes, I would say, I used to say when Rent was casting, man, some of the people they hired, and they, for good reason, right? They didn't want a lot of Broadway polish on that stage. They wanted it to feel raw. And there was a joke that would go around. They would say, if you want to get hired for Rent, send your resume, handwritten on a piece of notebook paper with a snapshot of yourself stapled to it. That'll get you in Rent, or at least get you an audition.
Yeah. That's a great metaphor.
And so, yes, this can be rough. This is not about coming in and everything being perfect and polished and every note perfect. No. The show's not about that. You know what I mean? The funniest times in the show is when something messes up, right? When something goes awry, when somebody blows a line. That's when it just gets hysterical then. So, yeah, we're just looking for it to be organic and open, and what do you bring to the table, and what's your spirit of inventiveness, and that's what it's about.
We can't wait to see the auditions. So just to go over the audition requirements one more time before we end, you're going to send one email to submissions@casamaniana.org, and in the subject line, please put your name and Bat Boy audition, just so we can sort it better. And in one file, please include a resume and headshot. That makes it so much easier for us when we're sorting through it. And a single YouTube link that has 2 minutes of you singing with accompaniment. And that should be in the style of Broadway, country, rock, or pop. And then in the same video, you can just go ahead and do one of these two options. Option A is a funny monologue, joke, or story from a play or your own experience. Feel free to be comedic, use voices, be inventive. Or option B, which is a pop song performed using accompaniment or a cappella in a very comedic way. Impressions and wacky, funny personalities are encouraged. Be creative once again. And can you please slate your video so that when we're going back through, we know who it is? That's
Please do that. And I think of it as like you're auditioning for Saturday Night Live. Because I think when you do that, you have to create all these characters and you have to write certain, anything like that is great. Now I'll listen, we will go with, if you come in and you say, the only song I have is If I Loved You. Okay, I'll listen to you sing If I Loved You. You know what I mean? We'll listen to whatever you got. But if you want to do something funny, wacky, crazy, that's better. So a song like that, and then, a comedic monologue, or even a funny story that you get to act out. It can be your own stand-up routine, whatever you want. But, like, for example, we always called it the ironically funny pop song, right? And there was a girl who came in, her name is Kathy Breyer, and she ended up being in the show. And she's known for just being wild, crazy, and she's this wild character type. And she came in and she sang Guns N' Roses' Sweet Child of Mine, but sang it deadpan. Like, never cracked. Oh, sweet child of mine. And the first 30 seconds were like, what the hell is she
What's
doing? What's
happening?
going
Yep.
on? And then it became the most hilarious thing I ever saw. And then another guy came in and he did, the song Turn Around every now and then, that. And every time he sang Turn Around, it was like as if he was hearing voices. And he'd turn around every now and then and he was looking around for the voices in his head. And he played the whole song that way. So something like that, something inventive, something crazy. But again, if you just got a regular song to sing and a funny story, that's great too. I'm just looking to see kind of what do you bring to the table and, who are you?
And all that should be submitted by 5 p.m. on March 9th, which I believe is, I will tell you, next Saturday. Oh,
Great.
sorry. No, it's not. Don't listen to me. It's next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday. Okay.
Yes. And that's to submissions@casamaniana.org. We're so excited to see everyone's auditions.
And just to talk about the callback real quick, that we're going to do those things you just talked about, and then we'll obviously do some stuff from the script, but expect some improv. You know what I mean? And it's not going to be put you on the spot, and there's never going to be like, tell me your life story. What's the most traumatic thing that? No, none of that crap. But we may get into some like, okay, well, here's the situation. What do you do? Here's 5 people. Here's what's happened. What do you do about that? You know what I mean? So it's going to be a fun, we'll look at everybody individually, and then we'll look at people in some groups for scenes, and then we'll probably look at, everybody together doing some things. Because remember, I'm not looking for people to try to stand out. I'm not looking for people who are jumping up and down trying to show off. I'm just looking for people that are there doing their gig, telling me who they are, And, it's a very specific show. And people fit in the world or they don't, but fortunately the world is really big. the Bad Boys casting world is really wide and really big, so there's room for a lot in there.
Yes, and we are excited to see that. Just so that everyone auditioning knows, you will receive an email by April 1st with your callback status, and then callbacks are on April 9th, just so that you can have that in mind when you're auditioning. Yeah. Great. Anything else you want to add, Dave?
No, I'm just, like I say, having, known about CASA for so many years, having been there, auditioned there, seen shows there, had so many friends work there, I'm just excited to get to come and be a part of it and hang out in Fort Worth for a couple of weeks. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, if you haven't been to Fort Worth, it's a treat.
I love it. I mean, I haven't gotten to really experience it. I've taught at Texas Christian a few times and had to come to Fort Worth for some auditions, but this will be the first time that I've ever spent like a period of time there, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, well, we're excited. And if y'all have any other questions, you can always comment on this live, and then I'll go back and get with Dave, and we'll get back to you.
Great.
Well, thanks so much.
Okay.
Yeah,
we'll talk to you guys soon.
Okay.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.